Last week, Dave was reflecting on the life of David, and so I thought it might be good to look at a psalm that David is believed to have written, a very famous psalm, Psalm 40. Let's read the first 3 verses together. I waited patiently for the Lord. He turned to me and heard my cry. He lifted me out of the slimy pit, out of the mud and mire. He set my feet on a rock and gave me a firm place to stand. He put a new song in my mouth, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see and fear and put their trust in the Lord. I waited patiently for the Lord. Who among us really likes waiting? Can waiting ever be a good thing? What about waiting for birthdays or Christmas or family weddings or a big holiday? Do you remember how the anticipation of the event and the planning was sometimes just as exciting as the event itself? Maybe that's a bit of a sore point just now, because it's hard to plan anything and so much is on hold because of COVID. So many of us are just waiting for life to restart, for some kind of normality to resume, unable to make plans because so much is unknown. And on the whole, waiting is not a pleasant experience. So how did the psalmist wait patiently? Maybe we can all find some help in reflecting on his experience. The psalmist is not in a good place as he waits. He's in a slimy, miry, muddy pit. Has he been stuck for some time, waiting in the cold and dark and damp and loneliness? When will someone come and look for him? Will anybody come to help? This is a picture from a news story from a few years back. I wonder if you remember it. A Chinese farmer was being rescued from being stuck in clay. It was a really dangerous situation because moving the wrong way might take him deeper in. And so the farmer and his rescuers had to work with painstaking slowness and be extra careful about every move as they tried to rescue him. How patient and still would he have had to be as his rescuers worked and chatted around him? How horrible to be weighed down and so stuck, so dependent on others for your very life. One panic and it might all be over. If anyone was in control of that situation, it certainly was not the farmer. Maybe his rescuers felt in control sometimes, maybe not. It was life or death, and the farmer was powerless. Is that how the psalmist felt in the pit? Or maybe it echoes with our experience as we continue to wait to see what will happen next with COVID, with government restrictions, with family plans or hopes, with church plans. It's all out of our control. All we can do is wait and see. And it's hard. And isn't that just what our whole world is struggling with in 2020? We thought we had it all under control, especially here in the West, where we don't often have to live with uncertainty, and we don't often find ourselves powerless. We usually have the means to make choices and find a way to deal with whatever life throws at us. But this year it's different. We're not in control. All we can do is wait for it to resolve. How patient are we? So how does the psalmist react? He doesn't sit quietly. He has cried out to the Lord, for the Lord has heard his cry. The psalmist has made his needs known. He speaks to God honestly about where he is and how he's feeling, and then he leaves it all with God. Our English translation says he waits patiently, but apparently in Hebrew the meaning is more like expectantly. I expected the Lord to act. So he doesn't just wallow. It's actually a more active kind of waiting. He hasn't given up. He's expecting help to come. He's confident the Lord is going to act, and is maybe even now acting, even though he can't see it from his pit. I came across this quote: "Patience is the settled reality that we are not in control." The psalmist seems to have come to the point where he can accept that he is not in control, because he knows the one who is in control, and he trusts him. For the psalmist, waiting patiently is not a passive attitude, doing nothing helplessly. This is a story of active trust and positive handing over of his life and struggles into God's hands. He doesn't bargain or demand or suggest what God might do. In the words of our quote, he simply settles himself with the reality that God is in control. When he's struggling, he remembers that he's not alone. He can cry to God, and God will help, even if it's some time before he finds out why he's had to go through this difficult time. The psalm continues, "He heard my cry. He lifted me out of the pit. He set my feet on a rock and gave me a firm place to stand." What a transformation from slippery, life-threatening insecurity and danger to a firm, solid base, safe and secure in an instant. And that's what God offers to us all, a firm base. He won't let us down no matter what life throws at us. Christ, our rock, has done it all for us, and he can rescue us from every mistake, every failing, every danger. He can comfort us in every sadness. When life's disappointments seem too much to bear, we can cry out to God for help. Do we believe it? Even as we feel we're in the pit and struggling, if we turn to him, he will remind us that he is in charge and at work in the midst of our struggles. So what is God doing just now at this dark time? I believe he's in control, and he's working in our world in a way we will not have experienced before. It may be years before we understand what he's doing just now in us, in our society, in our world, but he's not inactive. He is with us, and he is challenging us and preparing us for what he has in the future. It's not easy, but this time of challenge and difficulty will lead to growth in our relationship with him. Being thrown on him for mercy and having to really rely on him when we don't know what's ahead. It's only what we've been supposed to have been doing all along. He's challenging the whole world, especially those who thought they didn't need him. This time of upheaval and change is stripping away all we used to rely on. God is preparing hearts and minds to turn to him. As the psalm says, many will see and fear the Lord and put their trust in him. Do we believe it? As Christians, are we always and actively looking for ways to talk about our faith, to tell others about our God and how he is our strength, and He can be their strength too. I pray that God is making us much more missional at the moment. No dark time is easy. Very few amongst us would choose the difficulties and challenges of COVID-19. But this is a time for growth in personal faith, and I hope and pray also in the number of people who will turn to God in our country. Growth is never a comfortable experience, but we are never beyond God's care. God is in control and nothing is a mistake. God is with us and will work all things for good, whether we come to understand what's going on or not. May we all turn to Him and know His care and reassurance that He can hear our cries and He is working His purposes out, even in 2020.